live, so and the speaker system picks up quite a lot of noise, as you've seen. So we appreciate your attendance. Yeah, ready to go, team?
Just when the speakers are speaking, we need to move the speaker closer to them. We had that problem last time.
Oh, from over here.
When you approach the lectern, can we ask if someone moves that black
I'll do that.
dongle closer to you? There's a thing in front of Councillor Davidson that's a microphone, sorry, that'll pick up your voice.
I can do that.
I don't know what it looks like.
Oh.
Can I play with them?
Yep.
Yeah. Also, yeah.
Thank you.
We expect you all to run around and sort everything.
Sorry?
We expect you to sort everything for us, David. Thank you.
You're the expert, not me.
Thanks, team. Okay, here we go, guys. Cool. Kia ora everyone, and welcome to the Community Development Committee meeting of the 8th of June 2020. I'll declare the meeting open and call for apologies. Are there any apologies for the meeting? There has been an apology from Councillor Neal for lateness, and she's planning to attend at 6:45 this evening. Any other apologies?
Rob Daniel.
Oh, okay. Yep. So when we get to the presentations, councillors, just to note that Heritage Hokitika, Rob Daniel was an apology for that presentation. Cool. Thank you. The declarations of interest. There's an interest register being circulated, and councillors participating via Zoom have the opportunity to input into that too through Microsoft Teams. If you have any conflict of interest, please make that known at the time the agenda item is discussed.
Through the chair, could we have a move and a second for the apology?
Thank you, Di. Is there someone to move that Councillor Neal's apology for lateness be accepted? Moved with worship the Mayor, Bruce Smith, and second Councillor Davidson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thanks for that, Di. Interest register is being circulated. We do have an urgent item that did not make it on the agenda for print, and that is the University of Canterbury Student Volunteer Army Camp. And that's a late agenda item because it could not, the item cannot be delayed until a subsequent meeting or a following meeting, because the meeting would be held after the event is to take place. So with the approval of the committee, I'd like that added as a late agenda item for discussion when we get to reports from staff. Is someone happy to move that be accepted as a late agenda
I'll
item?
move that.
Councillor Davidson, from the second. Let's worship the Mayor. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you very much. The minutes of the committee meeting have been circulated to councillors through Microsoft Teams. Have there been any amendments to the minutes that were circulated?
No, it hasn't.
No amendments, so the minutes will be taken as read, and with no amendments, I ask that a councillor that was present at the previous meeting move that they are true and accurate record of the meeting held on the 3rd of February 2020.
I'm happy to do that.
Moved Councillor Cogan. Is there a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Moved Councillor Davidson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you very much. The fourth agenda item is the action list, and that is presented to us this evening by the Chief Executive. Good evening and welcome, Simon.
Good evening, councillors and your worship. Yes, I'll just run through the action list that came out of the last Community Development Committee meeting. The first item on the action list is to develop a subcommittee of this committee. So the committee is termed Reserves, Parks and Environment Subcommittee, and to develop the terms of reference as well. So nominees have been made by councillors, so thank you for that, and those will be updated in staff report later on this evening. So So items 1 and 2 have been completed. Item 3, West Street, invite to future committee meeting. So we're targeting the next committee meeting on the 3rd of August to invite the new chief executive along to talk regarding West Street. In terms of Westland Safe Community Coalition, Safer Westland, just to advise that group that the committee recognises the subcommittee, and that will be issued at the next Safer Community meeting on the 12th of June. Hokitika Museum Governance Group to be established. Obviously, we're making the impacts of the COVID-19 and the current changing landscape in regards to the museum until we finalise that group. Culture and Heritage Subcommittee. This is also an ongoing activity yet to be completed and to develop a terms of reference for that subgroup. Review Woodstock Lookout. Consideration for the future upkeep of this area and check it was included in the Custom Assets Register. The ownership investigator sits on private land. The track, kiosk, plantings, grass and tree is loaded into accounts asset database. The second part of that action was to clarification of the areas is referred to as Heritage Hokitika for maintenance purposes. That is yet to be completed and still ongoing. We haven't had that conversation with Heritage Hokitika yet.
Through the chair,
Yes.
the ownership investigator sits on private land. I'm unsure about that because when I was the secretary for that project, of course, back in the early 2000s, and that was road reserve. That was the whole point of why we started it, because the council of the day had proposed to sell it, and someone was going to build a house there and enjoy the magnificent view, and so we stopped that. And the council, at that stage, it was absolutely road reserve.
Okay, I've been provided this information, so I'll go back and investigate that. Confirm that.
The other part of the track, which is the lightning track, which goes from the lookout down to Back Creek, part of that is over our family trust land. That's the only private land I can think of there, but there's an easement that I was aware of.
Okay, so I'll follow that through. Thanks for the update.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Simon.
Hokitika Cemetery and signage at Franz Joseph. So there was a mention of the lack of maintenance of the cemetery at the previous committee meeting. So we have completed audits of our cemeteries by the district assets team. And any of the shortcomings have been addressed by the contract we have with Westroad, so that work is ongoing, and obviously we'll continue to monitor the standard of that work. So we do have a locked-in contract with Westroad to complete and maintain to a certain standard for that work. Western Creative Community Group. This is to confirm current members of that group following funding requirements. We have a report to council to confirm those members. Events calendar, this is ongoing and it won't be started until we have a committee secretary role appointed, which is going through recruitment at the moment. And Hokitika CBD Revitalisation Working Group. We've tasked planning manager Fiona Scadden to take the lead on this project. We've done one initial meeting internally with staff, and then we'll pull together a wider working group to take that forward. So there's a lot of work that's been done over the years, as we all know. Rather than reinventing the wheel, we've decided to pull that group together. We've also had a discussion with Jackie Bird on some of the aspects of her work that she's doing and confirming what the actual process is going forward. So we'll expect a working group to be established very shortly on that.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Committee members, are there any questions to that report? Thank you for your questions earlier, Paul, and comments. Deputy Mayor Carruthers, do you have any questions?
No, not from me, thank you. Nathan?
Councillor Cogan,
No, not for me, thanks.
Councillor Davidson,
No, not for me.
Worship.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I guess a number of these points come up in further reports as well as presentations this evening. So there is an opportunity to discuss the themes throughout the meeting as well. There being no further questions, ask that someone please move that the updated action must be received, and noting the Chief Executive's comments around the revenue lookout. Someone prepared to move that?
Yeah, I will.
Move Councillor Cogan. And a seconder.
Yeah, I'll do.
And Councillor Davidson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you very much, the Chief Executive, for that work. There is a significant undertaking by this committee going forward, and we appreciate the work that's been done so far. The first presentation this evening is regarding the Western Cultural Heritage Tourism Project, and that's going to be presented by Jackie Gurdon this evening. That presentation for councillors and committee members is in Microsoft Teams for your reference. Welcome, Jackie. Thanks for taking the time to be here. Just give us a moment, so we'll just adjust the microphone and the camera. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Your Worship, the Mayor and Council, what I was going to do today is very quickly update the work that's been underway with the Cultural and Heritage Tourism Development Project, and certainly this is working in with the work just mentioned with Fiona Scadden as well too in the town planning. So
Just reflect the minutes reflect that, Councillor Neil. Thank you very much.
Apologies.
No, thank you very much. We've sorted that and registered that, Councillor Neil. So welcome. Great to have you. We're up to agenda item 5.1. Thanks, Jackie.
So just background on this project. I think all bar probably a couple of councillors are quite aware and have been involved in different stages of this project, but it went right back to Heritage West Coast recognising the millions of dollars that's been spent in assets throughout the whole of the West Coast, which a lot of them aren't really being thought about in the visitor market and promoted into the visitor market. So we looked at that, and we really looked at three pillars within that. One of them is about business development with cultural tourism. The other is the not-for-profit sector and the community sector in those projects. And the third one is the whole environment. So when we talk about the environment, I mean things like the CBD development, where you're talking about a collective area. So those are the three pillars that this project looked at. And we looked at it across the coast, and we ended up working through it with the Westland District. We developed an entire proposal for Westland. We put that to PGF, and that was not funded. So then we narrowed that down and said, let's work between Hokitika and Ross with what we can. And it's utilising the funding that came from the economic stimulus package. So that's what we've been working with. So we've narrowed the project down into a number of things that we've picked off. And if I just start by the second page, the map we've got on the second page. So really looking at the Hokitika area, and particularly also the Western Industrial Park, the Mahinapua area and the businesses around that, and also the Ross area. So we've been working quite a bit with the industrial park, looking at their concept planning. They intend to make that much more visitor orientated, as well as keeping the foundations of the community and the work that they do up there for themselves. So we've been working with them on the development of the concept plan. We also prepared their lottery application for their big engine shed sort of live light and sound show. So we should hear the outcome of that application very shortly. So as I say, a lot of planning work been happening with the industrial park. Within Hokitika itself, looking at CBD planning, and if I just jump now to the next slide, really looking at a lot of the projects that are already happening and pulling those together into one plan. And the work that Fiona Scadden is doing is going to add the council planning, transport planning and CBD work from the council perspective to this, to get one sort of revitalisation plan for Hokitika. So we've really in this slide, the third page, pulled together all the projects that we're aware of that are happening with the revitalisation of Hokitika. So a big circle around the discussions. This was written before the Painamu Pathways, but certainly Painamu Centre, new museum, library, cultural hub is a part of that. The Y Seat project, and there's the potential to advance that now, I think, particularly with the creative arts funding that's being announced by government. So we need to look at that. That's part of a project that we've got looking at going forward, and I've just been talking with Sue about that. Because that was one that Y started. The original concept, Sue, was 10 seats around town. Not quite got that yet, but I think that could be revisited, that project, and the seats that are there now certainly need some enhancement work done around them. So working with Y on that project. There was a project that the council had put forward to do with the covering of Weld Lane. So I think that's something that Fiona is revisiting. There's the council's own beachfront development project. There's the Illuminating Gold Rush Hokitika project. So that tied in very much with the thinking around the luminaries at the time. We're aware that the planning from that, when we met, we had a meeting over the luminaries probably about 6 months ago now, Sue, wasn't it? And obviously with the rights of that, we were quite limited in what could be done. So we just put that project to the side and any work on that. The cultural precinct work, so you'll see the development of the precincts in a slide further on, and the whole Port, North Spit, Sunset Point and Gibson Quay area. You'll see within that too the Tohu Whenua project, which has already been announced as Hokitika as a national Tohu Whenua landmark, and there's work being done now to build that and promote that much more, make it much more prominent. So that's, when looking at the revitalisation project, that's the map of it. And right now, going forward, we have developed the trail around. We've put signage in that, and we've got a brochure coming for that for round town. And there are 20 interpretation panels. There should be 15 up very shortly. That's a joint project, jointly funded by Lottery, Culture and Heritage. And there are 15 that should be up shortly, and 5 more that will come, and some of the development of the beachfront, working in with the planning that Simon Eyre's been doing, they'll come once we know exactly where the placement of those should be. So that's the planning that's happening there. So right now, going forward, very quickly, we're trying to work with Fiona to pull the overall plan forward, but we're going to be looking at the Custom House, Gibson Quay and the North Spit, and projects like the Tambo. So David Stapleton is pulling together he's been working with the heritage groups, and he's also been working with council staff on what needs to happen there and what that could cost. So advancing that project. I've talked about the seat project, the Tohu Whenua, and the trail brochure, the trail around town. And the other thing we're looking at is the whole marketing and working in with that and linking that in with Destination Hokitika as well too. So the projects that we have taken from that, we were pulling together a Chinese business cluster. Obviously that's not sort of timely and appropriate to spend time on now, so we've actually taken that out. And we did have 6 cultural businesses working together to go to Trends. And Trends obviously was cancelled as well too, so we've stepped back on that particular project. So that's the sort of the Hokitika revitalisation, and that's very much working with the groups that are already doing things and actually helping move those projects forward. The jumping into the Mahanapua project. So if we did, sorry, the next couple of maps you've got, so these will all go into a bigger concept plan, but that actually maps out what the cultural precincts are. And then you've got the Wayfinder project that Simon Eyre, ourselves and Destination Hokitika had worked on that, and Simon's now working those wayfinders up and the directional signage to go with that. So he's sort of taken the lead on that project now. So they're the next couple of pictures that you've got. And then I think over the page, have you got the beachfront development? I'm just trying to turn mine over. You've got the heritage trail. So we took pictures, we've been around that, and we took pictures of all the things that really needed to be upgraded with that. A lot of stuff has run down. And so the intention is to replace and really elevate that particular trail. Then you've got the beachfront development work that Simon Eyre's working on. And then you've got the North Spit and Sunset Point and the vision around that, which, as I said, we're looking at getting those groups together and advancing those projects. Y Seats project, they are the seats that are there currently. Looking at elevating that. And then the industrial park project, which I've already talked about when we're working with the, that particular group. So if I move forward now to Mahanapua, we're working really on looking at trying to get a loop trail around that. When we first started talking about Mahanapua, I think people were thinking that that is really sort of cycle trail based and dock based, but there are actually about 5 businesses and about 15 experiences that are tied up with that. So probably within the next 2 days, I'll actually have an actual visual on what that looks like. It's almost finished. And that really is the case behind looking at the options for developing and actually elevating that trail to happen. The thinking behind it is, and it certainly was on a state highway that had a million people driving down it. And it was the opportunity to have that bike hire where you could drop off, you could hire a bike, you could actually go around the loop, spend your money and hop back in your car and head on south. So it was actually a way of capturing a very premier wilderness experience and feed into a number of businesses. So that was the Mahanapua project. That's still moving forward. It's moving forward in conjunction with the cycle trail and the council on that, and with DOC. So we've pulled together an initial document that sets that out, and then there needs to be a whole lot of consultation to follow with that. So I guess we've done the foundation work, but and particularly too with Garpio as well too, Paul, there. So that's the foundation planning for the Mahanapua area. And the final one that we've been working with is the Ross project, and we've had meetings with the members of the Ross groups looking at what could come forward from that. I guess the key thing out of that really is the development of the visitor centre down there and the upgrade. And we've had one of Te Papa's leading planners down working with us on a number of these projects, and in particular the Ross development. So looking at doing what we can in terms of the low-hanging fruit on that building, and then if a bigger plan comes out of that, so be it. We're very conscious that there's no big pottles of money to invent $1 million projects or anything like that. So it's really looking at what the themes are and looking at what we can develop with it. The other comment that I'd make is we're hearing a lot now about destination planning coming through Tourism West Coast and Tourism New Zealand. That's actually been the focus of this project right from the start. It's what are the attractions in our communities that have been developed to a certain level, and how can we actually elevate those? So for us, with hearing all the destination planning, the destination plans have been done a few years ago, a couple of years ago, and we're actually elevating them. And we're looking at 3 destinations here that we're working with: Destination Ross, Mahanapua, and Hokitika. So I guess that's just an overview of what's happening. Working closely with Simon on it, and a number of you are involved in that as well, as is Councillor Carruthers, Deputy Mayor, who chairs the management group that we've got. So.
Thank you very much, Jackie. So councillors, there was reference to the slideshow in Teams, the presentation in Teams, but I just wonder, open it up for questions. are there any questions from the committee? Maybe start with those on screen. Councillor Kogan.
No, Jackie, as usual, you were well onto it with all the jobs you've been facilitating with, and it's just really good to see general overall progress in all of the areas with the heritage. And it's great that you guys provide so much support actually to Heritage Hokitika as well. So no, great work.
Pass those comments on. Deputy Mayor Carruthers.
No comments or questions, thank you, Latham. But Jackie, once again, formidable report, fantastic effort by you, and very informative and helpful. Thanks very much.
Mm.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Carruthers. Paul.
Thank you. Just one question. The dreaded fox moth, does that feature in here at all?
The fox moth has been talked about with the industrial park. I don't know where it currently sits. I know that their longer term planning, they saw that as something that could be an arrival feature. So it's been talked about, but there's no, I don't think that, I think there's a sort of a body of work that needs to be done around that as to well, I don't know if it's the ownership or where it sits, but at the moment you've had it up there and it's in storage, isn't it? So the question needs to be asked, what is the future of the fox moth? Where does it sit? Would certainly be an excellent feature up there at the entrance, but that's just my personal comments. Yeah.
Just through you, we do intend to invite the industrial park chair to come and speak to this group as well in the near future. So we could probably put that to him on as part of this presentation.
Sure.
Certainly say if you've got ideas and thoughts, welcome them. I mean, that's how these things have come together, really, people's ideas and understandings.
So yeah. Part of the overall master plan for the industrial park, Jackie's been working with that committee up there in terms of the future, and that feeds into future applications for funding as well. So it's definitely good to get this committee around what that industrial park future looks like. And maybe even a committee trip up there and actually get it presented in situ would be quite nice.
Yeah.
Through the chair, it would just it'd be good to have some clarity on what is the future of that replica. I mean, there is some misunderstanding in the community about what happened to it, and it'd be good to clear that up and get it back on display, because it would be a grand feature. And well, it was previously, but could be done better. And if not at the airport, then certainly at the south side, the old aerodrome side. But
I think what because I've got quite a few questions and comments as well, and I think what will be really helpful is I'll make a bit of a list. I think we need to add these things to the action list from this meeting. Although they haven't been formal reports, we can definitely add lots of these things, because there'll be a few when it comes to my turn with questions, Jackie. I hope you read it. But before we get to that, Councillor Neil.
No, straight on to you, Nathan.
I'll get it past the ball straight to Councillor Davidson.
Yeah, just on in terms of the industrial park concept plan, Jackie, is there any scope there for visitors to be able to walk through the part of the site so that they can view the heritage relics at any time? So in other words, like having a track that sort of goes through the park, and of course the park would have to be safe for that, but there's some really lovely relics up there. And
so are you asking if there's the planning to have it when the members aren't there to have
that's
it
correct,
open?
yes.
You know,
yes.
there's not that that's no. And there's been talk, like the concept plan is how you take people through and the experience when you're there. But I would imagine there'd be health and safety and property issues with that. Yeah. So I guess the answer is no, it hasn't been talked about.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the sites, like at Mahindapura, for an example, along the walkway there's quite a few historic relics on either side of the track that visitors can enjoy that experience, you know. And I suspect you could do something like that up there as well, because it, you know, it's a fairly fascinating place. And perhaps, you know, that could be the start of a track that could go even further.
I guess the thinking that I'd have with that is it may well be that there's items there that can actually be put around the existing heritage trail.
Yeah.
It may be that they need to be in close proximity to the industrial park because of the nature of what they are, but I don't know. It's a thought that to display some of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Just an idea.
Yeah,
Yep.
Good idea.
Your worship.
Jackie, the last meeting we had with the heritage people, they were looking at funding application to extend the building across the entranceway with the fox moth suspended from the roof. I'm not sure how far they've gone there. I know they were wondering whether there was any MDI money left, which we...
So just thinking about that now, because they're they're developing the big engine shed at the moment, and they've got their big lotto shed that they have to work on, so it's probably further down. But I'm just thinking, because that is, there's the possibility of doing that and telling that story using, you know, applications to lottery environment and heritage, probably because of the historic nature of that and the story that goes with it as well too. So yeah, I know, I'm just thinking ahead too, that when we were planning, when I was doing the feasibility study for the museum, one of the arrival concepts was actually to have a virtual reality flight down that people could do that picked up all the towns on the way from what originally was, and that's the very good TV series Coast that covered that off. So, but yeah, that's my understanding was that's what the long-term thinking was with the arrival for the industrial park, and it seems totally appropriate.
Second thing, the signs around town. When do you reckon that'll happen?
The signs, which there's lots of signs.
The ones that point people to the attractions on the corners of the streets. Is it?
That's one that Simon had taken back in, Simon Eyre. So that's my understanding of that. He was working on that, so that's probably best directed internally.
So do we have the funding for that in place?
It's already paid for, so they're actually getting constructed now.
Oh, fantastic. So up before the next tourism season, whatever that may look like.
Hopefully before the next committee meeting.
Well, even better.
That'd be great.
Wow. Thank you for that.
Thanks. Yep, go back round. Yep.
Sorry,
Of
through
course,
the
no
chair.
problem.
I don't see any mention here of my pet project, the Remu Hill Lookout. It just seems that Remu Hill is a bit of regarded as the Cinderella of local tourism around here, heritage tourism, and you know it always gets shunted and gets the bare minimum attention, but it's never in the planning, and I think it ought to be.
Let's talk about it and put it in the plan.
Let's do that. I mean, it is the site of the last great gold rush of New Zealand, and
Still is.
it ought to have a lot more attention than it gets.
What would you like to see happen up there?
Just more cohesiveness between that and the other heritage projects around Hokitika. At the moment, it's very disjointed, just sits out on its own. As I say, it gets very little attention, and
I'm just thinking out there now in terms of the development at the old Kanuri Hall site, and potentially there is a work stream that actually does a bit of a loop from the tram to the Remu Lookout as well. I don't know, in terms of clustering and connecting things, there seems to be another circle you could actually draw on the map that pulls in a Kanuri story, Kanuri Wood story, Remu story.
I agree. I mean, they're joined at the hip. And then, of course, there's the work that was done years ago. I think his worship was involved with that, Bruce Burr, with the heritage panels that are put up along there. But that's another project, but they all do link together, and I know there's enough on in this plan already, but these are heritage projects, and they're all deserving.
I'm adding them to the list, Paul. Canary with a big exclamation mark. I mean that seriously, because I think when we scope this, and David, Deputy Mayor Carruthers, you might be able to input here, but the limitations on funding scope pulled those themes, the ones that are here, they elevated those, and maybe some things unintentionally and intentionally were not direct focuses because of the scope and the funding available.
You can only do so much.
That's right.
It's like we've already had to reduce the southwestern side of the whole project. It was all there. It was like, well, you've only got X, you've got far more than what you need, what you can cope with in this. So we've certainly bitten off an awful lot of projects.
Through the chair, we're in unprecedented times with PGF, and that PGF is not going to be around forever. But while they're gushing out the money, get in. I have a vision of a ghost town trail on the west coast that would, and I think it could be funded by the PGF quite easily, and it could be quite an attraction and pull visitors in from at least around the South Island. I mean, who doesn't like poking around old ghost towns? And the West Coast has got lots of old ghost towns, and you could link them all the way along. You could have a common theme, and all you need really is an interpretation panel in each, and a brochure and an app perhaps, and you're away, and people hop in their car and they follow the ghost town trail from Addison's Flat and Lyle to around the Ngangahura ghost towns, and to note Napoleon's Hill and down Brighton and Addison's Flat, and then coming down to Duncanville and Greenstone and Donahue's, Ross. And there's lots of them, and they can be quite easily linked together. But I know that's broader than what we're talking about here, but I'm just saying carpe diem.
Apps to do that was certainly in the first concept plans that we had, but that hasn't happened, and we certainly had no joy with PGF.
Just through we did put a significant application to PGF for culture and heritage tourism, and that has unfortunately morphed into a Whananga Pathway final version of the PGF application. So we've done all the homework. Not all the options are out there, but a significant amount was put forward as for PGF. We have been talking to Jackie about cherry picking some of the smaller projects and relaunching to PGF, and particularly some of the stuff around the town planning is actually going to be put into a bit of a PGF, considering that the other two districts on the coast have recently got money on CBD work.
Yeah, you had been told that it wasn't eligible though, weren't you? So that's
through the chairs. Sorry, another point on that. But of course, there has been a reset with the Provincial Growth Fund, and so projects that were discarded last time are very much back in the mix if they can be proved that they will create wealth and jobs in particular, and that they're shovel ready and ready to go. They don't require resource consent and a lot of background planning. They're on. And I think some of these can be done easily. I would urge a rethink.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments. And they are noted, and I think we need to advance them. My questions. One of them's been asked by His Worship around wayfinders, so I'm pleased to hear they'll be up by August. That's great. My one's a big because I'm trying to make sense, using this committee to actually drive its work stream. just trying to make sense of how the theory or the planning turns into projects in reality. And I can see that there are some runs on the board, but I'm trying to work out what the next step is. So we've got a body of planning work. Where does the money come from to actually advance it?
Well, what we're looking at, so if I take each of the projects, so that's why with the CBD planning, we're now working with the council and Fiona, or we always were talking and actually framing that up for PGF. So that's the town plan side of it. The industrial park, we've already put the lottery application in. We should hear from that shortly as to whether or not that goes ahead. The Mahinapua Creek are working very much with the Department of Conservation and the council's trail planning. So that went in as part of shovel ready. So hearing from that probably shortly with that one. And with Ross, we've really got to look at where we can generate the funding from for that. So we've got to develop that plan and then say what happens. So these are all materialising already, either on the ground or a lot of them into funding applications to the current funding. So yeah.
So I think the missing link, as I see it, is that there's like council and council's planning documents, the long-term plan and the annual plan. This is sitting to the side, and although it has feelers into it, it'd be great to see alignment and cohesion, so we know who, you know what I mean, so the whole plan aligns, and there's a lot of work here that needs to be.
So just through Jess, this is why I've actually tasked Fiona to take the lead on it. It actually sits in the master planning for all townships through Westland, and that fits into the one district plan. What we don't have is an overarching view for each township what the future looks like. So this is why we're pulling it together now as part of the district or the one district planning process. So the meeting we've had recently with Jack is a calibration meeting to ensure that what we're doing in this space actually meets the future town planning requirements as well. But then we're looking at parking, traffic flow, you know, what does the town need to look like in future space as well. And that'll feed into the next long-term plan discussions along with any capital requirements as a capital program.
That's the bit I'm interested in.
And then there are some quick wins out there which we're trying to pull forward into an application for PGF. Some of the easy stuff in terms of that we could actually make happen today if we had some cash.
We do have some things, like we have got a ring fence number for the beachfront development plan. That's probably more an internal question, but in terms of the page, I'm not sure, page 4 or 5 of the presentation has got the images, the visuals, but have we got a completion date on that body of work?
So that's already, particularly the Sunset Point, as you know, is underway, and Curb and Challenge is actually happening now. So we expect that to be finished by August, and we install the toilets, etc. So I suppose the south end will be completed by the summer, and we've already started putting further earthworks on the southern end of the beachfront as well. So it's all progressing. And hopefully by the end of the summer we'll have it all completed.
And theme that is my bugbear is maintenance and actually maintaining things, because it's great to have new things and they look fabulous for 6 months in our climate, and then we have moss and mould and mildew, and I'm, you know, particularly some of the things that are identified in this. I do think we need to make sure that there's actually a maintenance provision for everything we accept going forward.
Yes, through the reserves parks subcommittee, we already have a policy which we developed with the old committee, which is terms around who takes ownership of, I suppose, new monuments or artifacts or seats, etc. Trying to ensure that whoever instigates that requirement actually takes ownership of it to maintain going forward as well, which have been quite successful in the last few approaches. Obviously that the maintenance comes at a cost, and that's something that we have to consider when you go through the full development, just to consider the long-term effects of that development. So we ensure we actually capture that as an ongoing OPEX as well.
I'd agree with that. Thank you very much. And Jackie, thank you very much for the presentation. And I think we look forward to the outputs of the work that's been undertaken and the way it feeds into council's plan. Thank you very much. Okay, the next presentation is from Heritage Hokitika, and it's a projects verbal update from Imperial. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
While you're getting prepared, David, I'll just ask that a member of the committee move that the committee receive the Western Cultural Heritage Tourism Project presentation from Jackie Burton. Moved Councillor Neal. Is someone to second that? Councillor Davidson. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, David.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa ki ora tātou ko te he tana aho, ko rawari aho. Te he tana is the Māori name for Richard Seddon, and I'm the honorary ambassador for Richard Seddon in the guise of Richard Seddon. Yes, the project for Heritage Hokitika. We're a 30-year-old organisation and incorporated society. It basically started off with the development 30 years ago of the river frontage and the Carnegie building, and we project managed that through one of the previous councillors, and that did very well, and we've been involved in all of the heritage projects, most of them anyway, since then. We've been able to raise funds, and we've done that on many occasions, particularly of recent days, the Kumara Times. We raised $10,000 for the Kumara Times to be digitised online. One of the last great gold rushes, just before Remu was developed, and I know that's a particular point that Paul likes. Our project items like the Weybridge building. Rob Daniel built that, and it sits adjacent to the Custom House, and it's still waiting to be moved along to the west a little bit, closer to the steps that go up. But I was standing on those steps the other day, and I see that there's even more of a lean on the eastern side of those steps, and I think Simon knows all about that, nodding his head. The Custom House, we seem to manage that with tenants and so on, doing minor repairs, but the major ones come back to council. Statues and monuments, we keep a watching brief on, particularly the most important one, Richard John Seddon, and we've had a debate with some council people recently about the maintenance of that, to which I objected a little bit when what's his name, John Bainbridge suggested that the volunteers could be the ones to climb up the scaffolding to be supervised by a staff member, and we thought that as we're all getting older and getting smaller in numbers, that was a little bit something that we couldn't do. So he was going to follow up with Liddell's, wasn't he, and see what happens there. We've had a look at the Totalizer building to see how that's going through Heritage Hokitika, also the Heritage Park, because there are items in there that are of historical interest. The ribbons showing the odds, the big painting on the outside, which I gather is going up to the Heritage Park anyway. We hold funds for Charlie Douglas. A few years ago, there was a weekend of activity commemorating the 100th anniversary of his death. And we have over $20,000 in trust for projects that are concerned with Charlie Douglas. So as one of the most important surveyors of Westland, he's quite an important character. He's buried up in the cemetery, of course. We hold a small amount of funds for the museum when they have projects that they can apply to. When they had various activities, weekend conferences and so on, we supported their activities and we hold the funds for those, and they apply for funds occasionally. We keep an eye on the lighthouse. We put the information, what do you call it, gazebo up in the cemetery and raise the money for that. We raise funds for various projects. As I said, being an incorporated society, we can do that independent of council, but obviously contributing in. We have some ideas. Trails have been mentioned. I like the idea of Paul's Ghost Trail. We've been looking at the possibility of a Seddon Trail, which is statue to statue. There are two statues of Richard John Seddon, one which we have here in front of the Seddon building, and the other one, of course, very prominent in front of Parliament. And it would be a nice trail to tell his story from when he got off the ship here in 1866 and ended up under his monument in Wellington. Just a little sideline, in 2 days' time, it's the 124th anniversary of his death on June the 10th. Totally irrelevant, but I thought it's important. Stafford Cemetery with lions, we work up there, tell the stories up there. One of our members put up a plaque for Oscar Bottom. The Rimu Lookout has been mentioned, and somebody said about the volunteers doing the gardening up there, keeping an eye on the gardens. Well, we don't have enough members now, I'm sorry. We're getting older and not as many numbers that we had. And that's basically what we do. We have a watching brief on the history and the heritage of the town and its environs now, so possibly down to Ross, but we need to hear of projects and we can raise funds for those projects and be involved in it. Maybe not so much of the physical work, climbing up statues and so on, but just keeping a watching brief and being involved. So thank you.
Good, thank you, David. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'll open it up now for committee members to ask any questions that they have of David. Might go in reverse order this time, if you ever remember the order that I so we should begin.
No, I'm delighted with the presentation. You've raised some interesting points.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Davidson.
No questions, just you guys do a fantastic job, you know, great for the town, good culture.
We try. There's an awful lot of history here, Councillor.
Yeah, good stuff.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Neil.
Yes, David, you mentioned the totaliser building up at the race track. Can you just clarify, were you talking about the whole building being moved in, or?
That was considered some while ago. I think they're getting some surveyors in.
Yeah,
Chief
so
Executive.
we've been talking with obviously Heritage New Zealand regarding that building, Category 1. So their favoured or preferred option is to keep it in situ and obviously make it part of any future master planning. That's what we're endeavouring to do as first stage. The second option is to move it, and the third is obviously to demolish it if there's no further need for it. But our preferred option is to try and make it some part of the future landscape right there. But it will take some funds to obviously upgrade it, but we'll work through that once we get a final master plan developed for the race course.
Any further questions, Councillor Neil?
No, thank you very much.
Just in regards to the artefacts within that building, there is obviously some important, particularly the totaliser itself, the ribbon. So there has been expression from the Heritage Group or the Industrial Park to actually put that on display as part of a future display up there. So we'll work through all of those processes.
Well, we have the livery stable, which would be ideally suited. And if it was demolished, maybe a row of the windows could be installed somewhere up there.
Thank you. Paul.
No, I don't have anything. Love what Heritage Hokitika does.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Carruthers.
Thank you, David, for your comments, which are inspiring as they always are. I'm mindful of the fact that your group's been in existence for 30 years and had an enormously positive impact on Hokitika in that time. But my question to you is, how do you see the future? Because you've mentioned several times the ageing of your group, and I think of the Industrial Heritage Park, the ageing of those members who are also doing a fantastic job. But it is a worry that people interested in culture and heritage here are getting older, and one worries about what's going to happen in the future. So what's your succession plan, David?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. We were, before lockdown, going to have a combined planning meeting with particularly the Heritage Park, as we meet up there now, and maybe some of the other groups involved. Lions do a great deal of work up at the cemetery, and to see what we could resolve. I've had a briefest flash that maybe Heritage Hokitika and the Heritage Park could combine. Maybe we could become a subcommittee of the Heritage Park, or we just combine together, because we were the founding group, the group that founded the Heritage Park. So before the Heritage Park was set up, we were an incorporated society already, and were able to fund them and provide them guidance. So we need to sit down. We haven't had a meeting for 3 months, Councillor. We just need to sit down and have a talk about it to see how we can resolve these issues, and you raised them very succinctly.
Thank you.
If
Thanks,
you come
David.
to our next meeting, perhaps we could get you to talk about it a bit more.
Councillor Cogan.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for your presentation, David. And actually, I was going to raise the same thing as Councillor Carruthers actually has, because listening to what you've been talking about, and then actually it was interesting then listening to Jackie's presentation before that, and knowing also the work that the industrial park guys do, it just makes me wonder whether, you know, there could be more collaboration amongst a number of organisations like yourselves, because and unfortunately, as you know, when you decrease in numbers, the jobs don't decrease, but the expectation from the minimal numbers actually, and what they're required to do in their roles, increases. And that's when you get, you know, people that become a little bit disheartened and then, you know, want to pull out. So I would definitely like to suggest, and I'm not really sure, Mr. Chair, whether this is something that we could follow through with this community group, as to whether we could organise a meeting where we can get some of these other groups together. And I'm actually wondering whether, you know, throwing Jackie Gurdon's name into the loop, whether potentially it could be something that was sort of led from a steering group, you know, to help support, and then from there also get out there and maybe try to encourage more people to come on board and assist where possible. Yeah. So
it's very possible, yes, but it would be good to have council lead it, because a lot of the history and heritage belongs to the people of Westland, represented by you good people.
It's true, Chair. There was, from the last committee meeting, a suggestion of a subcommittee from this council representing all the relevant stakeholders to take a lead on culture and heritage, and supported by Heritage Hokitika Industrial Park, West Coast Heritage as well. So that's still one of our actions, is to form that subcommittee, if that's the right way forward, based on what you're hearing today.
yeah, I do believe that there's a need for it, and a need to support these wonderful people that have given so much of their time.
Thank you, Councillor Cogan. I think we need to advance that action. Question from me, David. Current projects, anything on the horizon?
No, not that we've considered, because we've had 3 months off. So we need to sit down and consider what we're going to be working on. The group has an idea about working on one major project, which is why I suggested the Seddon Trail, but that includes the places like the Stafford Literary Institute, which I believe a small group went and had a look at a very derelict building. But it's still there and it's still standing. So yeah, we'll put our ideas together at our next meeting at the end of this month.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for
I
listening.
really appreciate your time, and so does the committee. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very
much,
much.
David. The recommendation is proposed is that the committee receive the Heritage Hokitika Project's verbal update from David. Someone prepared to move, it's worship in the end. Someone second, Councillor Davidson, all those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Very, you're in favour? Yep. Thanks, Councillor Neil. I'd now like to welcome Sue Espin to speak on the Te Tai Pōtini Awards proposal. Maria Sue, welcome to the Community Development Committee. Thanks for taking the time to be here.
All right. Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for having me here tonight. It's this little project is something that I was encouraged to dream up. I don't know, many of you might be aware that there was funding made available through the government to Creative New Zealand quite early on in the lockdown, and it was $16 million, and it was called the Arts Continuity Grant, and there were various ones, and they were actually designed to support artists who would be struggling, obviously, post-COVID. So Simon got in touch with me and asked if I could look at ideas about what we could come up with. I came up with a whole raft of projects, and there, some of the projects I came up with, I reckon, could still be goers for future times, maybe. And they're all things that kind of have been floated around the community quite often anyway, and so it was just kind of quite good putting them all in one place. Things like a water sculpture, one that celebrates rainfall when it does rain, just maybe some semi-permanent sculptures on the beach of driftwood. People making them from driftwood. So anyway, there were quite about four projects, but the one that I came up with that I really worked on was one that Wai had been recently talking. Wai is Westland Arts Incorporated. Most of you would know that. Wai has got an interest in furthering the arts in Hokitika and Westland, and this is a project that actually fitted our aims really, really well, and it's an art awards project. So it's recognising excellence in the arts on the West Coast, and so Te Tai Pōtini is what we want to be calling them, because it's for the whole of the West Coast, but it would be coming from here. So it's a regional. It's an annual competition is what we're proposing, and it's to support and showcase West Coast artists. So some of the things with the application to the eligibility criteria is that they had the 16 million. You can apply for a project up to 50k for each project. So we were trying to think of projects that could kind of utilise this, but there's all sorts of other requirements that you had to have. And one of the other things is it's a short-term project. It's got to be finished by the 30th of September. And they also had to be projects that could be delivered in a what do you call it, a post-COVID environment, which meant that maybe we couldn't have an exhibition of any sort. So what I came up with was something based on the Tasman Art Awards. We'd been talking about the Tasman, we'd been talking to the people there's a guy, Graham Stradling, who was one of the people who organised those originally, and they're actually quite a good model for us to go by. And then there's the Taranaki Art Awards that are also another regional art award that, both of those art awards actually take artists from all over New Zealand. For this year, what we'd like to do is we want to support artists, struggling artists who from the West Coast who might be struggling, or people who have got connections with the West Coast. So one of the things is it's to foster excellence, but it's also to support artists and try and give them a platform where they can sell their work at these difficult times. So there would be a couple of specifically regional awards. One would be for an artwork that depicts some aspect of Te Taupōtini, which would be maybe a landscape feature. There might be any variety of that. And then we're also talking to local iwi, where we have got their support, which is really great. And hopefully we'll have an award that might be supporting descendants from the local iwi. So what I thought I'd do is the whole idea of the project is an art awards project, but what I'd like to do is I'll just tell you what the process of the art awards will be, just so that you kind of get the idea. And it's so West Coast, it opens, West Coast artists then submit photographic images of their work, because we were kind of like, it's not suitable to kind of have an exhibition as such. So they submit images, each artist can submit up to 3 images. And they've got to be contemporary artworks that they've done in the last 2 years. So what we'd like to do is it'd be great, maybe we might get 200, maybe we won't, but we're going to shortlist it down to 25. There will be different categories that they can submit into, so these are visual art awards, so we won't be doing, performance art or anything like that. It'll be just visual. So we've got sculpture, painting, works on paper, fibre art and photography. So what we're going to do is we'd like to have a winner, the grand winner out of all of those finalists, and which will be very difficult. I wouldn't want to be a judge particularly in this one. Anybody want to be a judge? Where you're actually, the judges will be choosing the, amongst all those things to choose one top one. So I don't know how you compare a photograph against a pencil drawing, but anyway, or a sculpture. But anyway, that's going to be the problem for the judges. The judges, we're going to get, we'd like to get people who are well versed in the art world, possibly, like gallery directors or something from Christchurch, or we'd like to get guests in, but it'd be really nice to get some sort of local judges as well. So, okay, so they submit photographs of their artworks, that's how it starts. So we shortlist 25 artworks. What we encourage is then that those 25 artists will be sending their artworks to us to get photographed professionally. So they don't need to be framed. One of the things that we're trying to do in these art awards is that there's going to be very little cost to the artists. So not having the art framed is one good thing. Each of those 25 shortlisted ones will get $250 each to pay for the cost of their materials and their time. So it's not like a prize, because it's they haven't actually won yet. So there will be, we're actually working to get some cash prizes. Wire's going to put up some money for it, but we're hoping the Blackadder Trust, hi David, might support it, we're hoping. But it's not a good time to be going around asking local businesses for support. We're very aware of that. So the purpose of these awards is that we have an online platform. Anybody who enters has their art displayed on this online gallery. Each person will they can sell their work from that online gallery. We're not going to take commission this year. Usually Art Awards, they do take commission, but because this grant, if we can get this grant money, it's still pending. We're waiting, it's being processed at the moment. You know, we will actually have, it's mainly to give them promotion really and showcase them. So cash prizes are going to be awarded to the top 4 entries, and category winners will be chosen. There'll be the West Coast Award and an iwi Award. And then there will also be prizes for each of the categories as well. So the way that we're going to display these 25 art awards, this is as part of this grant application, is big billboards. So we're looking at doing an outdoor exhibition of the artwork that will be on large billboards. You can see how big you can make things by this picture here, but we're not going to go quite that big. But we're going to look at finding walls around Hokitika, whether it's just one wall, maybe it would be World Lane or something that we could use like an outdoor gallery, or whether we could look at putting them around different places all around the town. So there'll be displayed each of these 25 winners as a beautiful photograph of whatever they did. So if it's a sculpture, it'll be a photograph of the sculpture. If it's a winning painting, it will be a really great photo of their painting. So then there will be a connection on every single one of those to get you to the website so that you can actually look at more. So so we're kind of hoping it'll be a profile thing for West Coast artists basically at this time. Just for the inaugural year, this year, the competition would be free to enter. As I said, try to cut costs for artists. And no commission for sales will be taken. We were thinking about making it COVID themed, but probably what's more useful for West Coast artists would be to actually just have their work showcased at this time. We don't need to dwell on the COVID theme. The entry form does actually have one little section that says how has the COVID crisis affected you in your artwork. So we will have some sort of documentation about it there. And then the cool thing is with the billboards is that perhaps they can travel. I haven't actually included this in the grant because it would be outside the time frame. So the billboards would be able to travel to other towns on the West Coast. So that's, I think that's pretty much it. The website obviously is very important. We've been looking at getting local website designers to do that. So and let me think, what else is there? Oh, the other thing is I've got people who are interested at the moment already to be on the committee. So I'm quite excited about that. So we have letters of support from from Your Worship, and we got letters of support from the Left Bank Art Gallery in Greymouth, and from both Paul and Francois have signed. We've got a wonderful little support letter there too, so from iwi. So we're I think that's it in a nutshell really. Are there any questions about these awards? We're waiting. It's still kind of sitting. I hit the button and now it's just sitting in this little portal going processing. They meant to tell us in 3 weeks, so it closed on the 29th of May. So it can't be very far away as to whether we've got this or not. Oh, one other thing is if we don't get it, with all the work that's been done, it would be something that would be doable as a future thing anyway. And there is other funding options coming up soon too. I know that art and culture is quite important for the current government, so there is quite a lot of funding there, and I do believe it's really good for our communities too. So it's good to support artists who give that extra spark to our communities.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you very much for your presentation. I might start with a question. What support do you need from council?
The support that I've asked for council was whether we, because wearing my museum hat, initially I did try to pull a bit of a Swifty and get the grant to pay for some of the artwork, you know, some of the winning artworks. So we were going to put them in the collection, and they said, no, you can't do that. So, but because the museum, I was doing this under my museum hat anyway, and so I was thinking, well, it probably wouldn't hurt if museum staff could help a little bit towards getting this happening. So there have been some hours pledged towards it. And the other thing is, because museum staff are not filling the offices fully at the moment, it would be really good to have a base, and possibly there could be a spot in the museum office that would be useful. So we're looking at seeking somebody suitable to do the job, to coordinate it. But that at the moment is all we need from museum, from council. But if council wants to support it by putting up the Western District Council winner for, you know, sculpture or something like that, although that may come later. I'm thinking for this year, if we can get funding for the prize money, it would be really good to get prize money, and Wire's putting some up. So then maybe next year we'll go, you know, it'll be the Tanker Davidson Works on Paper award or something, and, you know, whatever. Or maybe it'll be so it'll be, you know, there is actually a possibility to work on sponsorship in the future.
We're still on live stream.
Thank you, thanks for the response. Right, Councillor Cogan, any questions?
No, so great work using your initiative to get something like this underway in the community, and it really probably couldn't come at a better time now, when we need to encourage local artists, you know, and what they're doing back out there again. So I fully support, your initiative, and good luck. I hope you get lots of entries.
Well, that's the promotion side of it that we have to work on too. So,
Deputy Mayor Carruthers.
So interesting stuff. I don't want to pour cold water on you or your idea, but many years ago at Greymouth, and some people here will remember this, I personally did exactly what you were planning to do, wanting to do, and I established a thing in Greymouth called the Carruthers and Weatherall Art Awards, and we did exactly what you're planning to do. And what we found, we put our own personal money in for the prizes and so on, and so no funding was required. We paid for it all, paid for the prizes. First year it went fantastically well. Had a gala event in the Left Bank Gallery, and it was wonderfully supported. It was just fantastic. Second year we had great artwork submitted by artists from coast. Second year we had some fairly average contributions from artists. Third year the contributions from artists were frankly pathetic, and I cancelled it. And I set it up to help local artists, and we put a fair amount of our own money in to do that, and found that the artists completely let us down. And over the years, with my involvement in the Left Bank Gallery, found that all of the time the people who contributed the least were the bloody artists. And so I simply counsel a bit of caution, that these things may go well short term, but the people that you're often trying to help the most might be the people who don't help themselves. So I'm just, what you're saying is great. It's exactly what I tried to do, but that was some decades ago, so it's a different environment now. But I'm just a wee bit cynical about how it might work. It'll certainly go well first time, that's for sure. And what I suggest you do is have some kind of gala event. I think in the post-COVID world, we can get together and have exhibitions and so on. I think not to do that with artwork is kind of undermines what you're trying to do. But I think you need to be realistic about the legs that this kind of thing will have here. Sorry to pour cold water.
Those comments are really, really good, and I'm really aware that sometimes it is hard to get artists to do what's good for themselves, and sometimes they really do need a bomb. But so I'm not going to say that word, am I? So no, I actually agree. I actually have got ideas that perhaps this competition could go. That it could get, it would be national. Like a lot of the other art awards that I've seen have got the word national in the title, and they actually draw entries from nationwide, New Zealand, and I'm just quite keen that maybe this could go that way, because what that does is it really raises the bar, and if there is good
that's way too complicated to do that.
Yeah, it is done with other groups, I noticed. So it's, I mean, we would be keeping a track on how that, and talking to those people about how they make it work. But initially, if it is just sending in photographs of your work, that does make it a lot more accessible to people, and they can send in work that they have, already done at this stage.
Thank you for your comments, Deputy Mayor Carruthers, and thanks for your response. So, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a grand idea. We didn't hesitate to support it as our renewal. I hear what Councillor Carruthers is saying, but with respect, quite a few barbers have gone down the Greymouth Gorge since that happened, and artists are a pretty eclectic type, and they refresh all the time, and I think the artistic community is a lot different and can't be compared to what it was 30 years ago to what's happened here now. I've got full confidence that this will fly. Just a couple of things on it is the Te Taipōtini, so therefore it's really important, of course, you're talking about national, but it's really important to involve the whole of the Taipōtini in this, certainly anchor it here and coordinate it from here, but you really have to make sure that you get the buy-in throughout the region. And of course, the other thing that's different from the days of the Carruthers and Weatherall art awards is social media, and that's dare I say is a great vehicle for getting that word around on the for the whole of the region. And just final comment is regarding the Pōtini Ngaitahu Award, which is fantastic. That maybe that part of the award could be hosted at Arahura.
That would be great. We haven't, I've just put the basics together for this, so we've got to go into a few more details, and that's the sort of thing that we'll be looking at once we've got a committee on board, and we can get it sorted better. Thank you. That online media, you're right, social media is really massive, and we'll have things like on each poster would have a QR code or something on it, so that, and going into the website will be hopefully the guys Chris Thompson and remember the other guy, Craig Walker, would probably be doing this website, and they're quite excited to be working on a website that could be a little bit more zingy and exciting than a usual website. So we're hoping to make it so that it is kind of like, you click on something and something comes up, like the artist profile, a photo of the artist and some words from the artist, but then three of their artworks, hopefully they might all put 3 in each. That would be great. Yeah, we could put more, we could actually arrange that so that they can put up to 5 artworks in if we wanted, but that's something for the committee to decide on once we get to those details. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I think it could be a moving feast, obviously, because the conditions that we're all living in are going to change as we go along. Doesn't matter if it does only go for a few years. That's not the end of the world, I don't think. The point of it now is to promote the artists now. And if it does do a good job of promoting them, I think there'll be buy-in in the future. But even if it's just a great success now, it's okay too. That's good. How big are the display photos that might come out, you know,
I did get a quote about the size.
Well,
But for 25 of those, but you know, there's going to be a few things that we're going to have to work out. Like we've got to find enough places to put them, and whether, you know, like along the Postie Plus building would be really great. But we've got to talk to them about that properly yet. But I do think there are plenty of places we could do, and also within the quote from SignLink, there might be ways of self-standing them or something, you know, and having them. I just really like the idea that they're going to be these great things that can travel around the coast. So.
as well. And I love what Paul was saying about using, you know, making sure we do incorporate the whole coast.
Yeah, I think the reach of it is going to be really important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
So I just love your enthusiasm. It's you know, you and Don, you know, you've got a great track record of organising stuff like this, and the driftwood and sand. You know, you don't have to look any further, you know, just to see how successful and how much that's grown. You know, in fact, that's become global.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, fantastic job there. Just one question is, in terms of the categories, they're just West Coast artists?
At this stage, it'll be artists who have a connection with the West Coast.
Yeah, so you're going to have categories, because I've done some artwork through a you know, a tutor in Hokitika, a local tutor, but I couldn't compare myself to likes of David Carruthers' wife. You know, she's a fantastic artist. So
hoping she might enter.
Yeah, well, so would there be different categories?
Yeah, there are different categories. There's, but just for your benefit,
Is there a councillor section? That's what he's alluding to.
yeah, you want a councillor section, okay.
Got a smile out of
No,
David.
it's going to be an original artwork. No triptychs. They've got to. I think they've got. They can't be created. Here it is. Work must have been created within the last 2 years. It may not have been completed as part of a class or a workshop, and it may not be a prize winner in a previous competition. Just that.
Good.
These are what I've done is I've actually worked out the terms and conditions, because this was for the application. So I've tried to work out what the terms and conditions would be and what the entry form might look like. But it'll be digital, the entry form. You know, I mean, this is just some thoughts based on some of the other ones. So I might waive that for you.
Thanks, Sue. Well done.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Davidson. Wisha.
Well, first of all, Sue, you picked it up really quickly and it's applied for. I hope you get it. If you don't, there's still this huge value in what you've done. And the online gallery and the benefits for marketing the coast are, I think, huge. We have, as you say, we've got a large number of people in that section of our community, probably greater than most other places, I think. Certainly a lot of other places. So it's a good initiative. You're well done. Best of luck. I actually think it'll absolutely rock. I really do.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I want to hear.
Thanks, your worship. Thanks, Sue. From me, my question was up first, so thank you very much, Sue. I think you've got the support of the committee, you've got the support of the mayor through letters of support. And just reflecting on Paul's comment around Te Tai Pōtini making it reflective of the whole coast, so I'm wondering whether an approach to the other councils might be timely as well, because if it is truly a West Coast award, often Westland does the paying and everyone else goes, oh, that was us too. But yeah, I think it's definitely something to pursue in the future, because I do see huge merit the process, and I think you've got the backing of our council, and councils personally, so yeah, consider that into the future, I think, is everyone contributed.
Yeah, we will go wider, and I guess Westland has contributed to this more than any other council, but then it's the big bulk of the money for this year will be the Creative New Zealand money. And if we can get the website set up and working and robust, then we don't have to pay that initial setup cost for the website, and that can go on and just be added to and fixed. Yeah, on new works every year if we manage to sustain it.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Sue.
Thank you.
The recommendations here that we received, the Te Tai Pōtini Artists proposal presentation from Sue Espin. Sue, was there anything further that you needed included in that resolution, or is that satisfied?
Oh, sorry, not in the resolution, but I just wanted to mention that there could be other ways of displaying the artworks eventually as well. And one of the things I thought of is there's always been talk of images being projected on the side of the Regent Theatre or something. So if we ever got that camera up and, the projector up and running that works for that, that would be another place that, we'd have amazing art images to go up on the side. So, sorry, that was nothing to do with your
I think it's rather,
resolution.
is that an action point for the committee that we support options to, what I mean?
Let's get the fund approved first.
Yeah, we've got to get it approved,
But that's our contribution.
that would be further down.
Potentially how we support this fund.
Oh, yes, we can work with the committee.
Yes.
I've got it in writing, actually. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Okay.
Is someone prepared to move the recommendation that the committee receive the Te Tai Pōtini Artists proposal presentation from Sue Espin? Move Councillor Davidson. Bishop Mia, all those in favour?
Right.
Those against? Resolution is carried. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to speak to the Community Development Committee. We did have a presentation up next from Destination Critica, a verbal update from Samuel Blight, the chair, but Samuel is not in attendance this evening. So we shall proceed with the agenda. The next item is the staff reports. Item 6, and the first report is the adoption of the terms of reference for the Parks, Reserves and Environment Subcommittee. And I welcome the Community Development Advisor, Sarah Brown, to speak to this report. Good evening, Sarah.
Good evening. I take this report for the adopting the terms of reference, Parks, Reserves and Environment Subcommittee. And I believe it's been read and considered, with the recommendation that Parks, Reserves and Environment Subcommittee terms of reference are adopted.
Thank you very much, and I agree. The report is taken as read, and I will just open it up for any questions now from committee members. If there are no questions, is someone prepared to move that the committee resolve that the Parks, Reserves and Environment Subcommittee terms of reference be adopted? Moved Councillor Neal, seconded Councillor Davidson. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Those against? The resolution is carried. Thank you very much for your work on that report, Sarah and Clement. It's a great piece of work to keep underway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, exciting part. The appointments of, or confirmation of appointments of committee members that also, which is our next report, and it's also brought to us by the Community Development Advisor. Sarah.
Thank you. The Parks, Reserves and Environment confirmation of committee members. I take this report as read and considered, with the preferred option, confirmation of the appointment of the following to the Parks, Reserves and Environment Subcommittee for the current triennium: Donna Beard, Pat Newley, Joe Parsons, Riley Bergen, Bert Munira, Sue Davis, Kate Beard and Rob Daniel.
Is there any discussion on the recommended names? If there's no discussion, someone prepared to move that the committee confirm the appointment of the below nominated members to the Parks, Reserves and Environment Subcommittee. Moved Councillor Neal, seconded councillor Cogan. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Resolution's carried.
Excuse me, councillor, we still need to nominate one councillor to be representation on that committee as well. Unfortunately, we have got other recommendations.
That's absolutely no issue. I'm quite prepared to sit on that committee, and I open it up for any other councillors, committee members as well. It's not necessarily limited to one.
I'm happy with that, Nathan. I think we can still attend the meetings anyway, can't we?
Yes. Yep. Worship, are you comfortable with that?
Very.
Councillor Davidson?
You got his goal.
I'm quite prepared for there to be two.
No, place for it.
Chair, just like to highlight that this subcommittee is taking a lot of work on parks and reserves, particularly the future planning of these parks and reserves, i.e. the racecourse, Casquare. So it has a fair bit of responsibility in terms of defining the future of those reserves. But definitely it comes back to the full committee for endorsement. So anyway, a lot of work sits inside this committee.
I guess, I don't know how to handle this other than I guess Deb abstain and someone else sort of, someone prepare a motion to appoint.
I'll move that the chair of the Community Development Committee can be an officio council member on the subcommittee.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you very much. Thanks for clarifying that time. Highlighting that for us. The Western Creative Community, sorry.
Sorry,
Yes.
through
Yep.
the chair, the membership, Sarah, also says every representation.
Yes.
How are you planning to do that?
Yourself, Kaiwhakahari Magic, and Kaiwhakahari Francois Tuahai are most welcome to attend.
This is where we'll be talking about the Renu Lookout.
Mm.
So you could always attend for a couple and then delegate after that.
I believe that subject is close to your heart.
Yes, little carrot. No, perhaps if you put that tono out to each runanga,
Yes.
perhaps we can then find the right person from each to
Most certainly.
go on. Thanks.
As an action, and we've got the ability to do that through.
That can be
So, yeah.
part of the
Thank
action
you very
list.
much. The Western Creative Community confirmation of committee members as per the action list. So the Community Development Advisor.
Thank you. The Western Creative Community's confirmation of committee members. I take this report as read and considered with the recommendation that Angie Foster, Davina Roro, Faye Robertson, Moira Harty, Glenys Spurring, Sue Aspelin, Sally Richardson, Haliaria Hutana, and Paul Carriage be confirmed as appointed members of this committee.
Thank you very much. And a councillor from this committee, is there an expression of interest for anyone to sit on the creative community?
I believe you've already got yourself and Jane Neal appointed to that.
It's reconfirmed that as per the initial training appointments. Yeah. So we'll capture those appointments as well. As members, any discussion? There being no discussion, is someone prepared to move the recommendation?
I'll move that.
Moved, Councillor Davidson, seconded. See someone on the list that someone doesn't know.
David.
Oh, sorry. David, sorry, Deputy Mayor Carruthers. Seconded.
I am awake.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you very much, Sarah, for your work on that and the ongoing work. It's fair to say there are a significant number of subcommittees that fall out of this committee and they all need servicing. And thank you very much, Simon and Sarah, for the work you've done to date. And now that we're out of levels into level 1, we're very much looking forward to these committees starting their grunt work. So appreciate what you've done and what you're going to do. Hey everyone, we are at the near the end of the agenda. We just need to discuss the UC Student Volunteer Army Camp. Now that's come up as a late agenda item by the Chief Executive in discussion with myself and councillors, worship and councillors, around the fact that Student Volunteer Army are keen to send a delegation over here in July. And rather than getting into specifics about projects here, I think the recommendation is that we establish a group. Thank you to the members of the public. Thank you guys. Processes to establish a group that would then be able to input into and oversee the list of recommended projects to put forward to the Student Volunteer Army. So rather than sitting here tonight and developing that list, it's identifying who are the right people to be around the table to have those discussions, and when would an appropriate time be to have them. So first, are there any councillors or committee members that would really like to be involved in that work stream?
I'm happy to be on it.
Councillor Neil, Richard? Ex officio?
No.
Okay.
Appreciate the offer.
No, thanks.
Councillor Cogan? Deputy McRollins?
No, not for me, thanks.
The Rania Lookout could do with a bit of work.
Mr Chairman, pleased you raised that, because although I might miss that meeting, I'd like that one to be considered.
Yeah. So who, and from your perspective, who would be an appropriate person to input into this work stream from McCarthy's perspective?
Oh, from McCarthy,
Yeah.
Maybe a new chief executive.
Yep. Cool. And congratulations on that appointment too. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So we've got Councillor Neil, a McCarthy representative. We'll talk to Francois and see if we can put someone forward as well. Service groups, Lions, Rotaries, for Optimists, Heritage Hokitika, Industrial Park. I'm just going through all the ones that have been talked about.
RDA, some work as well.
RDA, an email, maybe just an email to all the schools, might suffice in terms of interest levels there. Yep.
I could just say through the chair too, I would urge to that subgroup thinks outside the square. And it's a great opportunity when you've got free labour. But rather than send them around the same traps, it is an opportunity to get them off the beaten track to Ringy Lookout, to landscape around the new kiosk at Canary, for instance.
Definitely, those are the projects we're looking for. I think if we can focus on not so much private landholdings, but projects that keep them out of the, I suppose, the state highway, and which creates a lot of legislation and supervision. Projects that don't require a lot of supervision, but very just guidance more than anything else. So I think through the working group, identify those projects through the individual organisations, and really focus on the ones that, looking at the resources that are available to get, don't spread it too thinly either, just focus on some quick ones out there.
Have you got a proposed date for the group to meet?
I haven't organised that, but we can sort of work on a date and we can pull the team together.
So
I think for the next 2 weeks has to happen because there's a lot of planning involved with that.
So we've kind of got more of an action really than a resolution, but it's really just firming up in the next 2 weeks to people that will oversee the list of tasks or jobs, and that will be Councillor Neil, representative from Tui, Runanga, and all the service group representatives, our cultural tourism, our cultural heritage work and groups. And from that we'll all a lovely project.
Yep.
List of projects.
It's been a list of projects for probably several years, by the sounds of it.
It's a fantastic opportunity and the spin-off outside of actually doing that's like Manaki for them too, because we can showcase Hokitika as well and the best that we have to offer. So if you're in accommodation, and those are the things that we're thinking about too, as part of that working group, is how do we actually host as well as receive benefit, which I'm sure we're great at. The beachfront's got a few speed rooms. Cool. Yeah, any further comments, questions? And nothing else, we'll just note that as a action, or do you want that firmed up as the resolution? Before we close, just back to the action list. There were a number of things that came up, and a lot of things like, you know, I kind of had a bit of banter around the ring to look at, but there are things like that, and that need to be captured somehow into workflow. And I think some of that will come out of Parks, Reserves and Environment, now getting the reserve plans updated, but also that's going to mean at some stage we're going to be coming back to council with a request for more money. And it's the only logical, when you look forward, many years of delayed and deferred maintenance is probably going to mean that that's going to catch up with us. May not be this year, but at some stage.
Definitely a long-term plan process. Right. So we're starting those working groups within the next 6 months, leading up to a finalising it just post-Christmas. So yeah, definitely that scope of work needs to be developed now.
Because when I hear things like volunteers climbing statues and stuff, that's all stuff we should now have in a work plan going forward, I think. I don't know, maybe I'm good, lone voice on that, but it's like, we wouldn't put our museum collection out in the rain and sort of just say, oh, well, it's volunteers' job to maintain it. But it does come at a cost, and I'm aware of that, and I think we have to have that discussion with our community around levels of service. I think people do want heritage to maintain. I know they may not be represented in their membership, but there are a lot of young people also that do care about heritage. They may not necessarily be affiliated with the group and are quite prepared to have a discussion around how we pay for it.
Just through the text, there is a new portfolio that sits under the PGF and it covers community halls and war memorials. So, and also there's another portfolio covering Mariah's as well.
Oh yes, we're already in that.
So we are working hard this week.
View on that one.
And we've already reached out to all the community groups around Westland in terms of their aspirations for the community walls. So we're developing an application within this week to actually get away to PGF with MB as well. So that is a working piece right now. So hopefully we make some quick wins in this space. The war memorials, cleaning them is one of them, and already know some of it requires minor maintenance. So that'll be included as that as well. Great. So hopefully we'll get some support from central government on this.
Thank you very much.
The big thing is we have to recognise that it's going to get pretty tough out there. And so council's funding is limited. And so every time the opportunity comes to apply for funding for something that achieves one of the objectives of the committee, it's really important we get into it. We might only get 1 in 10, but it's got to be a focus for us over the next couple of years. Really important. I mean, I like what Sue's done there. Hey, if it comes off, it'd be fantastic. If it doesn't, it's fantastic anyway because it's a plan for the next time. We need to be focusing on that as a real priority. Every time something comes up, what does it fit? Does it fit this? Or does it fit this? And then we have a go. And I know the chief executive is very focused on it, so it's pretty important.
Yep, I agree.
No, yeah, we've got to keep it going.
Can be demoralising, gentlemen, as well.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, I think we've got a track record of success in terms of being obtaining external funding, and I think more we can get in better. So well done, and long may it continue. We are at the end of the committee meeting, so thank you very much, committee members, for your participation this evening. And at 7:24, I'll declare the meeting closed.
Well done.